Ashlynd, you mentioned last week you were going to talk about an upcoming project. What's this project?
Okay. Do you want me to say the actual topic?
Yeah. I don't know how you don't say your topic.
Oh, okay.
What? No, let's go back. How could you talk about this without telling me what the topic was?
I don't know, Bo. I'm nervous.
This is like vague posting.
I would like to know.
So, Ashlynd, what is the topic of your special project that you've been working on for weeks?
Months.
Yeah, it's sensitive. It's not a the topic is not a laughing matter.
It's about as heavy as you can get.
Yeah, it's actually been pretty heavy in the newsroom as we've been discussing this.
You take a sort of a broad look and then a more intense look at child sexual abuse from all sort of different angles. But what's your overriding thing for the first one?
In the first one, it basically is an overview of what the crime is. And I talk with law enforcement, mental health therapists. I have, survivors that I've also spoken with that will be tied into the beginning. And then it also looks at, I built graphics and stuff about myths. A lot of people think someone from the park is going to snatch their kid up. And that's not typically how it is. Usually it's someone that the kid knows, typically a family member, a friend of the family, someone like that. And so I think that's kind of where it's very eye-opening, is a lot of people don't expect that at all.
Let's see, and Michelle, you editorialized about this. How long ago was that? Because we had the hijacking of the Save the Children or whatever it was.
Right.
The idea that the thing we don't focus on this, focus on the boogeyman out there. And so, tell us a little bit about what was going on at that time.
Well, last year, it was,
there were actual
during the election,
rallies.
it was built
rallies.
Yeah, that's how it started for me.
Yeah.
This is how the idea started, was from the hashtag Save Our Children.
The thing that really struck me about it was that it really did seem like an attempt to distract people, or to, basically as a distraction from other things that were going on. Because, these were people who were suddenly terribly, terribly concerned about this, who were sharing this hashtag, who were sharing all these posts about this sort of cabal of child sex abusers. And, these were people who had never posted anything about it before, who didn't seem to have any awareness of it prior to that. And as soon as the election was over, to be honest, they stopped. It totally died off. I haven't seen anything from most of these people since then. So, it was like a really weird sort of social media phenomenon that a lot of people got swept up in. And the thing is, it's really hard to take issue with it, because who the heck doesn't want to save the children? Mm-hmm. Who the heck doesn't want to pay attention to this? But what Ashlynd has been doing is she's been looking at the reality of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important. It's like, more than a meme, more than a hashtag, more than some type of a social media movement, let's look at what's really going on in our communities. And that's what she's doing. That's the value.
Yeah, and since I cover court cases, I come across this crime all the time. But when I write those stories, I never put the family bond in my story. I never identify how the victim knows their abuser. And so I half expected people to be shocked at that point. But most of the cases are usually someone within the family. And I actually have 4 women from the same exact family with decades and decades of abuse. And they came forward in 2019 because their abuser had gotten married and was planning on adopting another child. If that would have never happened, they said they probably wouldn't have reported, because no one knew. They were all around the same age, except for one was significantly older, and they didn't know about each other. Everyone thought, oh, it just happened to me. It just happened to me. And then once they started talking about it, they realized, oh my gosh, he did this to all of us.
Well, and Ashlynd, one of the things that I've gotten from hearing you talk about this and from the stuff you're sharing with me is that I mean, this is a difficult topic. It's hard to talk about. It's not pleasant to hear about. You don't want to think about it, right? Nobody wants to think about this. But the fact is, it needs secrecy.
Yes.
It needs shame and secrecy. It thrives in that.
Yes.
That's what fertilizes it and allows it to grow and
Yes.
flourish, as it were. And so I think by shining a light on that
Yes.
and bringing some awareness, I mean, that's really what you need to do. You've got to shine a light on it.
So it is very, there are intense parts and it is very emotional, but the key is just education. There's a lot of things that all 4 women have said that they want the community to know that this is a crime that is underreported, and typically everyone knows a child or an adult who was at some point sexually abused as a child in their life. So.
And how important was it to them? What did it do for them to talk to you?
It started with one victim, or one survivor, and she actually wanted to just tell her story. And then I reached out to another woman, and she wanted to tell her story, and then it blossomed into 2 more coming forward and wanting to tell their story. And so they've been able to, their abuser is actually going through court. He gets sentenced next week. And so once he is sentenced is when all of this will come out. But they were able to take their shame that they have felt for years and years and years and kind of rethink or rewire their thinking about it. Because for so long, they have held on to shame and felt, to quote them, I felt dirty. I felt worthless. I felt like something was wrong with me. And I told him, I said, there's nothing wrong with you. It was him and his choices and his decisions. And so it kind of was like a therapeutic session, and they were able to just kind of unload everything and talk to me. And it wasn't like an interview. I told them, I said, this is a conversation. Speak however you want. I don't have to print everything you said. I won't print everything you said. But I want you to feel comfortable enough to say whatever it is that you want people to know.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, just being able to get out from under that
Yes.
enough to talk about it and have someone listen to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because so often, the victims are not listened to. That's
Yeah.
what another thing that comes out of it over and over again. So having someone listen to you and believe you has got to be an incredibly powerful thing for them.
Yeah, and it was shocking because that's exactly what they thanked me for. They said, oh, thank you for doing this. Thank you for letting me do this. And I'm like, no, thank you for owning your story and helping people understand what this crime is, because I see it all the time in court. I see it all the time. I have to hear children testify all the time. But the community doesn't, unless they're sitting in a jury, they're not influenced by that. They don't come in and they don't see the police interviews and the Civil Center interviews. They're not subjected to that. And I see that daily. I just had one today, in fact. And so I just wanted the community to be educated on what this is. So the next time someone sits in a jury and they hear the defense say, well, why did you hang out with your grandpa if he did those things to you? They will understand there is a bond within that child and their abuser.
Right. Right.
I wonder in how much of your early reporting maybe upends the sort of stranger danger mythos.
Oh, it's it's in the intro. It's very quick,
And not to say that, no, you don't want your kids getting in cars with strangers.
Yeah, obviously.
No.
But yeah, most of the harm done by, people are people in positions of care, caretakers.
But the other side of that is it was interesting that the online sexual exploitation was more likely to be done by a stranger than someone that they know. So that was very interesting. I found that out. So it's like the physical face-to-face is more likely to be someone your child knows. But over the internet, it's typically someone the child doesn't know.
Which is sort of new.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
In the last, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Different forms of leverage that abusers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
so
different types of
advantage
access, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really about access, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's if you're able to talk to the child whenever they are seeking someone that they want to talk with, they need a friend, say that their mom and dad work a lot and they're they're wanting that interaction, they can get it online. And I guarantee no one is going to shoot your child down. That is why we have detectives that do undercover work. You know, it's very easy to just access the child when they're in need of something.
Another part is, especially when we talk about, we create these boogeymen, because a lot of times we're not facing reality, and you see this failure to report. We've seen it, what was the high school coach in Western Oklahoma?
Waynoka?
Yeah.
And
where is that in Oklahoma?
I'm not even sure where it is.
But then we had something in Perry a few years back, and so you see that a lot. And I think you mentioned that grooming often starts with other adults.
Yeah. So Investigator Rockford Brown from the Sheriff's Department actually told me that someone that is wanting to take sexual gratification from your child will not only groom the child, but he or she will groom the people around the child, make it seem like it's normal. They will be the person that spends a lot of time with your child, but doesn't seem like it's wrong. They will take special attention to get the parents to trust them with the kid. Hey, you want me to take your kid for ice cream so you can do the dishes and laundry and stuff like that? I'll help you watch your kid. Run. Every time.
So if Ashlynd ever does have a kid, don't ask to babysit. That's what she's saying.
Okay, so I looked at the Stillwater PD cases, and like over half of them were a family relation or someone they knew. I think out of like 100-something cases, there was one babysitter and 2 neighbors.
The whole thing is, hearing this stuff, reading it, it does make you kind of heart sick, because it's tragic, and it hurts families, these kids who go through this, it is tough stuff. Yeah. But I think it's really important for people to have the tools and the knowledge about how this really works and what really happens.
Yeah, and that's what this really goes into is it talks a lot about how to help protect your kid, things like that. Then it has testimony from all 4 of the women, and then it talks about the last is going to have resources and stuff like that. There's a woman named Lauren who was abused by her nanny in, I want to say, Florida, and she started a foundation called Lauren's Kids, and she actually goes to different schools and teaches about this crime, and it's been picked up by several, I want to say 40-ish states now use her curriculum. Oklahoma is not one of the states, but she would like all of the states to start using her curriculum to educate people on child sexual abuse.
And one of the things we talked about, and I'm not sure how much of it's in your stories, but the idea of, go give Aunt Edna a hug.
Yes.
Go sit on so-and-so's lap. You've got to give them a kiss. The idea that we socialize our kids because we want them to be close to family members, to feel like they can't say no to adults. Children are taught. You're supposed to listen to adults. You're supposed to, adults know better. You can't tell them no. You can't be rude. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. And a lot of that prevention is that bodily autonomy, right? Mm-hmm. Teaching them that if they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what Jordan and I discussed. She is the first victim I spoke to, and she said that she felt like she couldn't tell him no because it was within her family, and she was raised to not talk back to them. You be polite. You are supposed to be seen, not heard, right? Isn't that the saying?
That's what I was told.
Yeah. So, when you teach those kind of things, kids don't feel like they can say no. We need to be teaching the children, you don't have to give so-and-so a hug and a kiss. When we do it to my niece, if she says no, I will not fake cry. I will not pressure her. I will say, okay, Demi Jo, you don't want to give Auntie Ash a hug or a kiss right now? Let's, go jump on the trampoline. Let's play. Let's do something else. I don't force her to do anything she doesn't want to do.
Your love doesn't have strings attached to it.
Exactly, and that's the difference. If you want your children to be protected, it's not enough to say to just watch them around people you don't know. You need to also watch them around people you do know.
Well, and I think also, if your kid tells you that, it indicates that someone makes them uncomfortable, or they tell you something.
Yeah, that's what Rockford Brown said. He gave the exact example that if one of his kids were to make allegations against him, believe the kid, because why would the kid lie about something like that? When I go through court cases and I have to see the children actually get on the stand to testify, 90% of the time we have to take multiple recesses because they are crying on the stand. Now, that's not something that they have made up. They have to go into detail about their sexual abuse in front of 12 people that they don't know and everyone in the courtroom, including me. So they are just exposed, for lack of a better word, in front of everyone. And it's embarrassing. Why would they lie about that? They're not trying to get attention. And most people say, oh, well, they're trying to get attention. But what kind of attention is that?
You're also hearing a lot from defense attorneys,
Yes.
which is a whole different kind of psychology.
Sure. I mean, the
Yes.
other thing, too, is the delays in reporting, right? Because sometimes they don't talk about it till they're grown or
Yeah.
older.
Yeah, I was looking at the OSU summary activities, and there was someone who reported this year from an assault that happened, I want to say, in like the 70s. And they just reported it now, 2021, and their assault happened in the 70s. So, I mean, for both, last year I looked at adult sexual assaults, and this year I kind of looked at child. They're both very similar in ways that they are not believed, and there's this reporting delay for both of them. And then, but the difference is, as adults, people ask the questions like, what was she wearing? What was she drinking? As children, it's, why were you hanging out with them if they were doing this? Why would you accept the gifts that they were giving if they were making you do this? You know? So there's just a double.
Yeah, listen to adults.
Yeah.
But why weren't you acting like an adult
Yes.
when you're a kid?
Yes, that's, and you know, to quote one of the girls I spoke to this week, you know, she said, I found everything suspicious. I saw him take them to the camper. Why did none of the adults around me seem suspicious when I, as a child, was suspicious? It just blows your mind.
Well, I think the trauma too. I mean, it takes a long time to process something like that and work through it.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the shame, the secrecy, and, you know, as in the women you interviewed, each one of them thought they were the only one.
Yes.
And, you know, so then you hold that because it's like your personal shame, right?
Yeah.
It's not even something you share with other people.
Yeah, and one of them
it's
actually, like, she said the only reason she didn't fight harder was because he threatened to do the same thing to her little sister. And he, in fact, did do the same things to her little sister. She didn't even know until recently, within the last couple of years. But, you know, she tried to protect her sister, and she couldn't.
Right.
So it's just all of 4 women are strong in their own unique way, but it was just heartbreaking to hear their stories, honestly.
Well, I think it's going to be a good series. I really do. I think it's going to be very informative. I think it's going to be shocking. I think people will learn things that they need to know. I think people will learn things they never wanted to know. Yes. And I think it's both heartbreaking and inspiring when we start to talk to the survivors of this.
Yeah, and you know, over the last 9 months, I've really seen them grow, because it started with, well, I don't want my photos being used and I don't want this, to, yeah, no, don't blur me out. I want to tell my story. I don't want to hide from this anymore. So it's like you see them blossom into these women that are just proud to tell their story of abuse to help someone else. You know, it just
kind of ties into the Me Too movement, right?
Yeah.
Being brave enough to put yourself out there.
Well, and standing up and owning it. And the more people who do that, the more people who say me too, the more likely the more you remove that stigma, right? The more
you don't feel
the more
alone.
someone can. Yeah, the less you feel alone, and the more someone else feels like they can speak up as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So Bo, when is this running?
Next Saturday, September 18th. So
I never guarantee.
I guarantee.
That's why I asked.
I never guarantee publication for
I wasn't trying to take
I guaranteed it.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
hopefully
soon.
nothing major happens.
Yeah,
but
it
soon.
won't be long. Yeah.
And it will be over a period of a few weeks.
Yeah.
Just trying to give listeners some idea of
when
this is coming.
The suspect that this is centered around gets sentenced next week. So after he's sentenced, I have the green light from everyone to just let it go.
Hit send.
There we go.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
This is a big project. It's an important thing. You've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally
Yes.
tears, into this. So I'm excited for people to see it. I hope people really pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I think that does it for this one. Thank you for joining us in the newsroom. We'll see you later.